Today we're going to paint a landscape here, and I've got my half pans, very inexpensive, by Royal Line Nickel here. I've got my ceramic palette here, does have some leftover paint from a previous project in there, which the great thing about watercolor is you can reuse it, so that's really nice. I'm going to start off with some cerulean blue here. Now you can take the pans out of here and put them on the palette, which I have done before, but they tend to want to hop around a little bit, so I'm just going to bring that over there. And I'm also going to get some Prussian blue. Let me squeeze out the excess there. And I'm going to put some Prussian blue right there. And I'm just using a water brush. This is a very easy to squeeze water brush. If you have any issues with hand strength, this will help quite a bit. So I'm putting it right on my dry paper, but I am adding quite a bit of water to it. This paper here is a handmade watercolor paper. It's by Shazam. And it is, it stays wet for quite a long time. It's 100% cotton. So I know I can, you know, these areas are going to stay wet. So I'm going to bring this down kind of like in a triangle. And then I'm going to connect it to where my water's going to be. And I'm going to bring a lot of the same colors throughout. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that cerulean impression. And I'm going to start that in there. Bring my water line out there, put a bunch in the middle here. Because I'm putting on quite a bit of water, I want to make sure I have plenty of pigment there as well. Now I'm going to have other colors here in the landscape that's going to be reflected in the water. So I want to go ahead and put those in right now. I'm going to start just by kind of getting some of the extra pigment off my brush, and then I'm going to grab some yellow. This is like a lemon yellow. I can go ahead and squeeze water right on that pan. I can mix it in with that and add some of that right into my water here. And I'm also going to get some orange. Again, I'm going to squeeze out the extra. I'm just going to go wipe it on a rag too. Grab some orange. Add some of that to the edge because I'm going to have some fall foliage here, so I want to make sure that I'm going to get some of those nice colors. As long as the area is wet while you're working, it shouldn't give you, you shouldn't get any blossoms. It's when it starts to dry that you get the blossoms. Get a little more green over here, I think. I'm going to fill that right up because I know I'm going to have water in there. I think maybe I'll do a little bit of red. I'll lift up some of that water right there before it pulls down and gives me any trouble. And I think I'll do some browns. By putting my paint on in this horizontal fashion, it's going to help it feel more like water. So now I'm going to take some of this bluish gray mix up here. And I'm going to just put some way back here in the distance, and that's going to kind of fade out and just give us the appearance of far away foliage. Now I'm going to grab some yellow. Dab it right over top to give us some closer foliage. I'm going to go right down over where I had that water meeting the sky. Add some green in there. I'm still using that large water brush. So if you're painting on location, a nice round, big round brush will do a lot of work. I'm going to take some of the green and some of the Prussian blue. Put that down here towards the horizon line. That's going to give us some nice shading, give us some nice depth. And I'm going to just try to be a little careful as I go in here because I'm going to have some closer trees in there, so I just want to make sure I leave room for them. Grab some yellow and a little bit of orange for some more colored trees around here. I like to use a rougher paper for landscapes. I feel like it does a lot of the work for me. So then to clean my brush off, I'm going to squeeze it onto a rag and just wipe. Get all that extra pigment out of there. I'm going to go in with the yellow and a little bit of orange. Get some fall foliage. And as it mixes with some of the blue in the sky, it'll just turn kind of green, so that's alright. Oh, I want to get a little bit of a, kind of a little bit of a shore or riverbank area, so I want to use this other brown that's a little bit less red. Use your palette when you need to mix or you need to dilute a color. This paper doesn't have a ton of sizing, so when you put a color down, a lot of times it just wants to stay. So you want to kind of be careful that you don't end up with your colors darker than you want them to be. We'll move that over here too. Okay. I'm going to take a bunch of yellow. I'm going to mix it with some of the cerulean blue. Make a nice bright spring green. Add some of that next to the riverbank there, where it would be getting more water and therefore being a little bit brighter. I'll grab some orange. Maybe a little bit of phthalo. Or Prussian blue, rather. Add a couple trees going right off the edge. Going with some of that bright, excuse me, kind of viridian green. Of course, you can mix and do colors you prefer. If you don't like these colors very much, you can choose colors you prefer. You could choose mixed, like sap green or hooker's green. This is kind of a fun way to paint. You just kind of go through and fill in the space. Some red trees in there because I had some red reflections in the water. I think I'll let that dry a little bit more before I put any more foliage on those big tree branches there. Over here, it's a little bit darker, so I want to get kind of a darker mix. So I'm going to go with that dark kind of viridian green. Grab some phthalo. Can even add a little bit of that red in there if I want, because that will really blacken it. Those three colors, the phthalo blue or Prussian blue, it's a Prussian blue actually, the Viridian hue, and the crimson, that's going to make a really, really dark color. So this is mostly in silhouette over here. The sun is behind these trees. I like to have some trees kind of extend off of the page. I feel like it gives it a nice scale. I don't want to put a ton of water on this tree because I'm going over some damp areas, so I don't want it to just kind of fuzz out too much because this is a little bit closer. It's kind of hanging over the water, see that? And it's closer to the viewer, so I've already got a real dark color which wants to recede, so I really want to make sure it's crisp with its detail so it will stay fairly close to the viewer. Let those branches just kind of feather out in front of the water. I like to have a little bit of sky poking out, but not a ton, because this is going to be more filled in here. I'm going to mix up some more of that dark. We've got the red, we've got the Prussian blue, and we've got the Viridian, especially up here into this underbrush. Just enough water to make it flow. And then I want to add some brighter greens into that to give it a little bit of life. But we've got our values established, so, and this, I'm painting quickly, but if you are painting out on the field, you would want to be painting quickly because light changes. Sometimes, you know, you've got other people with you that don't necessarily want to hang around while you're painting, so you want to like make every stroke, every moment count, and just try to catch like a impression of the space that you're at. Clean my brush. I want to get a little bit of a brighter pop. I'm going to take some of that orange, a little bit of that yellow. Just kind of dab in some shapes there to represent some deciduous trees. And then I'm going to go in with this color here, and I'm going to add some ripples in the water because you would have some reflections of that. Okay, we could put some rocks here and there. I like to add rocks to a landscape, so I'm going to take my brown, I'm going to take my Prussian blue, mix those together. We're going to get a nice inky dark. Now I do have black in this set, but I haven't used any black yet, so I kind of don't want to add it in right now. Add a little bit of water to that mix. Maybe add a little bit of that lighter blue to chalk it up a little bit. Keep mixing your palette enough, you'll get gray, don't worry. If you're not trying to get gray, you call it mud, but if you're trying to get it, you're calling it a neutral. Make your rocks smaller as you go up onto the, further up the paper to give you some nice scale. Some nice big rocks down in the front. Now what you can do is actually scrub out a little bit to lighten up the paper. Kind of squeeze your brush off on a rag. You can scrub out some areas for rocks. And then I'm going to look at the values. I'm going to take some of that brown. I feel like I do need some shadow towards the back. I'm going to pick up some of that dark mix that we made. And I'm going to go in and add some of that back here towards the back of the stream. And in the foliage a little bit. Now for highlights on the rocks, you can lift out, but if your paint doesn't want to lift, what you could do is go right into your white. And you might need to kind of put some water on it and let it sit for a minute so that it can get activated like a gouache. And then you can go in and you can add, you know, some white highlights to the rocks if you want to. That way you don't have to lift if your paper doesn't want to cooperate. You don't have to let things dry and go over with glazes. You can just kind of highlight them like that. I am going to go with a smaller brush to do some real dark details. Now you could go with black, but again, I'm going to mix because I can mix a really good dark with the colors here. Maybe even just leave it at a purple. That would be kind of interesting. That would really pop, I think. I would try not to outline everything, but like probably get the shadow on the bottoms, maybe on some of the edges. It's more of an impressionistic scene, and I think when you're painting out and about, you really want to just kind of try to capture that mood and not worry about it being absolutely perfect, because you have limitations when you're painting out and about. Gonna add some of that dark into these tree branches. I'll add some brown to that too, just because we had some brown in there to begin with. I take that right off the top of the page. Nestle that in behind the rocks. A shadow behind those little shrubs there. And I'm going to do just a few little leaves up in the tree. I'm going to get the deciduous tree. I was going to make it a pine tree at first, but then I changed the branches, so. And sometimes you get to a point where your paper is completely saturated and filled, and that's where we're at right here. So I am going to leave this as is, let it dry, and call it done. Another little landscape postcard that you can paint on location. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed these quick and easy projects. And until next time, happy crafting.